The internet is a message of hope to connect people from all over, to share information and to learn. We now know the internet is prone to spreading hateful messages as much as loving. There was no malice behind the formation of involuntary celibate people, but as it evolved, it gained traction as an anti-woman movement. In the late 1990s, a website was created titled Alana's Involuntary Celibate Project, with the aim to help people with dating. Before the era of online dating and social media, Alana wanted to create a safe place for discourse on dating. The platform slowly evolved over time and eventually transitioned into a hate movement. The first incel, The Legacy of Mark Lepine by Maya Bloom, associates the anti-feminist shift to 2014 when a campaign aimed at game designers who were women. The article suggests that incels have emerged as a reaction to this mixture of toxic masculinity and the increasing power of women's rights. There is also a link between people who identify as incels and mass murderers, as some mass murderers have identified themselves as incels. An example would be Elliot Rodger. In 2014, Elliot Rodger orchestrated several mass killings in order to revolt against a society he deemed unobtainable. While not all incels condone his acts and align themselves with him, in some communities he is regarded highly and is seen as a role model. Bloom also stated in her article that on some incel forums there are references to going ER, meaning they want to incite violence against women. Many sites like 4chan, Reddit, LoveShy, and incel support formed after Alana moved away and started to idolize murderers. The early 2000s and chat rooms. Connections from the incel community to the alt-right formed and extremist views started to hold focus. In the early 2000s, chat rooms were created to unite incels across the globe and unify their beliefs. Platforms like 4chan, LoveShy, and Reddit held space for incels to commune and connect. Each of these platforms are unique, but they all gave the users means of Christing themselves. Albina Laskatov, in her article with Eastern Kentucky University titled Navigating the Manosphere, an examination of the incel movement's attitudes of sexual aggression and violence against women, paid specific attention to online context behind incels' violence against women. LoveShy.
It's a place to vent. I mean, it's just a place to socialize with other incels who suffer from the same problem I do.
LoveShy was one of the first online forums post Alana's project for people who were looking to better their relationship with others, for men and women. The platform divided into LoveShy individuals and incels, but there was no clear division of these groups besides the identifying label. The forum allowed members to share their experiences, similar to Alana's project, but allowed for more extremist views to be shared. While some websites had restrictions of certain words or phrases like swear words or inappropriate language, this site allowed profanity, which allowed misogynistic and hateful comments to transpire. 4chan. 4chan was an image board that ran until the 2010s and housed the start of memes, which are picture jokes that act as colloquialisms. The site became popular for alt-right members and made space for incels that identified with alt-right beliefs. It quickly became a safe haven for incels to further strengthen their values while being able to define what they believed their issues to be. The site was anonymous and allowed members to feel more confident about what they were doing. Subreddits. On the website Reddit, many forums were created. As sites began to close down and restrict certain words, subreddits were titled using incel-specific vocabulary and found unity under the men's rights movement. The men's rights movement countered the men's liberation movement, a pro-feminism movement sparked in the 1970s. The liberation movement identified and criticized harmful stereotypes and outlined traits society had deemed inherently masculine. The men's rights movement came to fruition. The author, Laskatov, stated that men's rights movement's activists believe that women in general and feminists in particular are invisibilizing the instances of sexual violence that men are experiencing. The men's rights movement saw men as victims of oppression and women as the perpetrators along with a feminist society. This movement has given fuel to anti-feminist groups like incels with skewed data and ideologies that gave weight to the manosphere. In order to understand the incel movement, it is first necessary to understand the context and beliefs in which it is situated. The manosphere, the red pill, and gender essentialism and its offshoots are all key concepts in understanding the incel movement and how it is growing and evolving. The manosphere is an internet-based network of blogs, websites, chat rooms, and discussion boards centered around anti-feminist views, the difficulties of dating, and perceived discrimination of men. It is believed within these circles that women have three motives when interacting with men: deception and manipulation, satisfying sexual needs, or trading sex for power. This is a common narrative among manosphere spaces. It reinforces misogyny and violence against women, both online and in real-life situations. Feeling used or ignored by women is a common first step into the incel spaces. It allows for individuals to blame society rather than their own personal shortcomings. This is often when men are introduced to the red pill. The red pill is a reference to The Matrix, where the characters have the choice between taking the red pill, which allows them to see the reality and faults within their society, or the blue pill, which allows them to remain in their comfortable yet ignorant lives. The red pill men are considered alpha, of how feminism has negatively impacted their lives, leading them to fight back by seizing the power which they believe is their right as men. Blue pill or beta men are seen as weak and brainwashed into believing in equality. They don't understand true reality. Quoted by Jing in 2019, the red pill is at the core of the manosphere. It creates a bond between men who believe that they have been wronged by society based around the idea of male oppression under feminism. One of the theories which manosphere communities rely on heavily to justify their beliefs is gender essentialism. Gender essentialism is described as a form of psychological essentialism, which assumes people of the same gender share a deep underlying essence that shapes the way they exist in the world. This meaning that the gender assigned at birth determines how people go about their lives rather than their own individual thoughts, ambitions, or morals. The motives of women, as mentioned earlier, are deception, promiscuity, and trading sex for power, all with the goal of hurting men through emotional or sexual exploitation. Males, on the other hand, seem to fall into three distinct categories within the confines of gender essentialism: alpha/chads, betas, or incels. The alpha/chad male embodies traditional masculinity, is sexually successful, attractive, or often financially successful, and is seen as the top tier of men, as they are able to hold power over women, as well as other men. This alpha/chad male is seen as aspirational in some channels, but in incel channels, chads are seen as the type of men that they are incapable of becoming due to the oppression by society. The word beta can take on many different meanings, but in all cases, it does not align with traditional masculinity. The term beta typically refers to modern men in romantic relationships with women, as they are seen as being weak for sharing emotional connection, money, and power with their significant other. These types of relationships are viewed as weak because the man in the relationship does not hold all the power. It is believed that women want to be dominated, and women will cheat on beta men with alphas to feel fulfilled. The final type of male is involuntary celibate, or incel, a group which has outlined their own parameters. The group self-reports as being genetically, physically, or mentally undesirable in a way that is unchangeable without surgery, isolated without any hope for change, and express depression, suicidal thoughts, and anger towards particular people in the world. They believe themselves to be oppressed by feminism, alpha chads, and think that they are owed sex and relationships with women because they are men. Spouting hateful rhetoric and wishing for the good old days. Understanding the learned helplessness by incels is necessary to understand how these harmful beliefs are passed between groups and individuals, and how these have become prominent internet narratives. In 2020, Canada had prosecuted a minor in Toronto who fatally stabbed a woman. His motive? Incel rhetoric. Countries are beginning to label incel-motivated crimes as terrorist activity, which has significant drawbacks. By naming incel violence as terrorism, it provides the cause with a sense of legitimacy by portraying them as a threat and creating public fear of their ideology. A common stance on fighting incel violence is simply improved access to mental health services. As stated in Misogynist Incels and Male Supremacism by Kelly et al., the focus on mental health treats loneliness and depression as the root cause of incel violence, rather than misogyny and male entitlement. As this is a global issue, it is necessary to have global and/or federal plans to tackle incel violence, rather than disjointed provincial programs. One way to adequately address incel violence is a public health model which provides 3 stages of intervention. This is similar to the surveillance of terror groups, but on a more individual level, as incels do not typically work with others when perpetrating violent acts. As the incel movement and online hate in general has only been around for the last 20 years or so, there are limited resources and programs tackling these issues. Many programs are being developed, but the current options for support are limited and difficult to access. The two main models which programs currently follow are prevention and intervention. Prevention programs focus on preventing narratives from becoming ingrained in people's lives and identifies by providing support and resources before it becomes an issue. An example of this would be Next Gen Men. Interventions approaches are aimed at interrupting and stopping negative thought patterns and beliefs after they have become part of an individual's lives. This has proven to be a more difficult method as it is similar to the brainwashing and complete belief that one has in a cult. An example of an intervention program is the Evolve program run by Organization for the Prevention of Violence, OPV. Prevention programs aimed at youth have proven to be successful as many people begin engaging with online hate groups during their preteen and teen years. By having a base of connection and support, boys are less likely to subscribe to the types of online hate that they may be subjected to. Throughout the years, the initial incel movement evolved from a safe place for involuntary celibate people to have discourse on their dating life and struggles and creating connections, to then developing into a movement of toxic masculinity and violence against women. Its effects have shifted a generation of young, impressionable men to formulate toxic ideologies and dangerous attitudes. There have been countless other programs aimed at promoting healthy masculinity. These programs are essential in tackling the extremist ideologies of incels. By better understanding the history and evolution of these groups, incel forums, manosphere, red pill, etc., we can begin to develop and create approaches/plans to resolve these issues. These online forums, as well as COVID-19 isolation, are huge contributors to the rapid growth of these ideologies. It is essential that we don't approach these issues with judgment or ignorance, but instead try to understand the evolution of incels to create a solution.